Life is full of big moments of change and transformation where we have to pivot on our path.
Those moments come with a wide variety of emotions, from fear and anxiety to joy and relief.
I'm Kelly Koopmans.
And I'm Mary Nam, and this is Hard Turn. So good to see you, Kelly.
Good to see you too.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
If
We
you're
look
watching.
extra colorful today.
We do. They were shooting some pictures of us earlier
Yeah.
today, so we felt like we'd get real dressed up for you.
Today's episode is, how do I say this? We interview someone with many, many hard turns.
Yeah. Trying to ask him to pick one feels like it felt like a very big task to try and ask him. So I say we just roll with all of them because there are plenty, and they are, as he would describe them, left turns that turn right.
That's exactly, the title of his memoir, his book. His name is Jere Stille. He used to live in Washington State, had a high-level executive position at Boeing for many, many years, CFO of Boeing, South Carolina. Recently retired, though, and enjoying life, and flew to Seattle to share his story with us. So, Jerry, we so appreciate that. We have with us today author Jere Stille. Wrote a memoir / self-help / book of faith to talk about your own life. And thank you so much for being here, Jerry. You flew in from South Carolina for this. We really appreciate that.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Your book is aptly titled When Left Turns Go Right.
Did you know you were going to come on this podcast?
I had no idea. It's incredible. Yeah.
We're laughing. I listened to your book, and you've had so many left turns. And it all starts with a very difficult childhood. I'm just going to jump in. You're a retired Boeing executive.
That's right.
By all accounts, the success that you found as an adult, no one would look at that resume and think, oh, this is a person who had the childhood you had.
Yes.
It could have gone wrong in many different ways.
Yes.
Can you talk about a little bit about your childhood and what that was like?
Yeah, thank you. Mother raised four of us. There's four siblings, Don, Robin, Melanie, myself. We're all 4 years apart. I'm the youngest and the only boy in the house. So I learned a lot of do's and don'ts, and which I covet today for certainly treating my daughter and rules for my daughter and care for her. Mom was trying to make ends meet. As a single provider. Melanie, so my next oldest sister, is autistic, can't do anything without a human helping her, and so her needs were great. Don and Robin were kind of self-sufficient and could be out kind of on their own in school and after school sports and things. But to take care of Melanie and I, Mom had, to make ends meet, would trade a room for rent, if you will, free, if they would watch Melanie and I. And while that was a solution for a problem Mom had, it created, unfortunately, just a really difficult time in our life, a lot of trauma, abuse, and for both my sister and myself, which at the age of 6 really shaped my outlook. Life was tough as a kid growing through. So that's a little bit about as a kid growing up. And I can remember just thinking, at the age of 6, I talk to people today, it's not normal, but not wanting to live at 6 because of the trauma and the abuse that was happening. There was a mom and an older boy that showed up in one day, and Mom said, "Hey, this is Sally, and this is Sammy, her son, and they're going to live here with us. Take Sammy up to your room. He's going to share your room with you, and they're going to take care of you and stuff."
These are strangers.
These are strangers. Yeah. Absolutely strangers.
How old is Sammy at this point?
Sammy was about 6 years older than I was.
Okay.
And so he was older. I'm 6, so he's about 12.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, like, oh, some kid's going to come into my room. He was kind of not friendly. He seemed to be kind of mean and whatnot. And so I showed him to my room. But shortly after that is when the abuse started, and it was tough. It was really tough. One of the things that both my sister and I would experience was just this physical abuse. Sammy would punch, he would kick, he would take me in the backyard, he would just do awful things. he would hurt Melanie too. Melanie was, because of her situation, was typically tied into a wheelchair so she couldn't get up and away. And so I would catch him hurting her when I would come in and poking at her face and things. And it was just a really tough time. As things got worse, I started to insert myself between Melanie and Sammy because I needed to protect her. And so that would direct his abuse on me. Some of the most difficult things that happened in my childhood is if things got bad enough, we'd go into the bedroom and he would just do some really awful things. And if I would make his mom angry, there were times where he would pick me up by the neck against the wall and choke me until I'd pass out. And the words he would say is, "I'm going to kill you." And then I wake up. And so that young story of my life really just shaped how dark things were for us.
How did it finally end?
Yeah, so here's an interesting. His mother and he left to go shopping, and that was the moment I thought I was going to tell my mom. And so instead of telling her what he had done to me, I shared with what he was doing to Melanie.
And what was her response to that?
She says, "We're going to have a conversation when they get here." And I said, No. He will kill me, Mom. Do not do that. And she looked at me puzzled, like, what? And so when they came back, I was sitting in a chair next to her, and then she was just stern. And she just said, "Hey, here are the things that were happening. Pack your bags and get out."
Did you feel relief in that moment, or were you still terrified?
I was terrified until they walked out the door. Mm-hmm. And when they walked out the door, I had this incredible sense of relief. Like the devil that was allowed into my home had just left. But that set the tone for what life was.
You carried that with you.
100%. Yeah. And what I learned with that skill set is that life is dark, it's mean, it's evil, and I had to be tough. And I used that as my survival technique throughout my young life.
You talk about it being a survival technique because clearly you go on, you accomplish a lot in your professional life, also in your personal life, except it's this very formative event when you're 6 that kind of lays the groundwork until you're 19. And then really at 19, you kind of have this transformative experience to maybe take some of the energy that was stuck in the trauma and then channel it forward. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, Kelly, here's what happened at 19. I was fortunate enough to have this mentor in my life, a former boyfriend of my mom, greatest man I've ever met in my life. And for a short period of time, he was just this positive influence. Mm-hmm. At 19, I was lost, meaning about what should I do in life. I was so upset about, I had just lost another friend on a motorcycle accident. And I honestly, I was checked out, and I wanted to check out. And so I was contemplating just ending it. Bill knew where I was in that, having a conversation with my mom. And he called me and he says, "Listen," he goes, "I want you to do something." I said, "What's that?" And he says, "I want you to go to a conference. It's called the Landmark Forum." Now, I thought it was something to do with real estate because he was a very successful commercial real estate person. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Sure, I'll do that." And so I went to this conference weekend in downtown Los Angeles. And it was the first day went by, and I thought to myself, wait a minute. This has nothing to do with real estate. What's going on here? And I was committed, though. He paid for it. But by day 2, I realized I just had this ability. There's this voice in our head that we can control. There's this power that we have to choose and not be a victim, but you could change the story. And all of a sudden, I realized that I could change the story that I had as a child to not allow it to affect me. I could choose to actually go, I didn't believe that I could be successful in life. I just really didn't believe that. I didn't see a future. But I left there realizing that the world is my oyster. If I want to go chase something, I will. And that was the moment that everything changed for me. And so I decided I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go, not knowing Boeing would be at some point in the future for me, but I just knew I wanted to go back to school and go be somebody in something. And so that was the point that things changed for me. What I didn't take care of at that point was the trauma and the pain, as I just learned to stuff it. And that was what I was really good at. Like I could hold that at bay, not let it affect me, and move forward. But there wasn't healing in that. There was just the ability to move forward in that successfully.
You're a person of faith. You talk about it a lot. Spirituality is a huge part of your life. Can you talk about when that became a guiding post for you?
Yeah, I was 21. I'm now on mission to go conquer the world. I'm in school, I'm working, and I'm doing all these things. And I'm thinking to myself for a moment, like, things are so great, but I felt this sense of void. And I wondered if there was a God. Like, I just wondered, like, is there a God in this? I had been to church a few times in my young life with friends. And so I thought, I'm going to go find out. And I went to this Catholic church in Mass, St. Gregory's Church in Whittier. And I remember going into the church. It felt big. It felt large. I got in the back, and half the sermon was in Spanish and half in English.
Oh,
and,
boy.
Yeah,
Do you understand
there's this moment. This moment that I thought you could get down and pray. And I got on my knees and I prayed. I said, God, if you're real, could you show me? Could you bring somebody in my life that could help me understand who you are? That was it. And so I got up, didn't feel anything, walked out, and I thought, 2 weeks go by, and I run into this girl at the gym, and I said, Julie, and she says, I said, Julie. She says, Julia. I go, oh, I'm sorry. It was somebody I went to high school. I hadn't seen her for 7 years. She was a freshman in high school when I saw her. I knew her because she had a friend who dated my best friend, and there was just funny school things. And she said, what are you doing here? She says, did you ever graduate high school? And I looked at her and I was like, what kind of question is that?
Like utterly insulting.
Like that's what's insulting. And I said, of course I did. She goes, oh, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, there it is again. But she was so right to do that, because what she remembered was the friends that I hung around with ended up in prison, jail. Some were killed. Some didn't finish high school, because that was the group as a kid growing up. And so a lot of kids that I hung around never made it through high school. Mm. And so I understand why she asked that. But you got to remember, I'm like 2 years on my, I'm conquering the world. Like, who do you think, So long story short, to get to the punchline here, we went out for lunch. She shared this story about church. And I thought, church? Could I go with you to church? And she said, no. And I said, no? And she says, no. And so when I dropped her off at her house, her mom asked, are you going to go to church with me? Go to church with us? She said, no. And she goes, oh, she doesn't want you to do that because she sings on the worship team.
Oh, it wasn't personal.
I looked at her and I was like, what's going on here? So I didn't get to go on that one, but I went on the next one. And that was the moment I went to this. It was a very charismatic church, spirit-filled, and, there was people all happy and stuff. It felt kind of awkward for me, and walked in there. Instead of in the back row, they had a seat for me right at the second row.
Oh, geez.
And so it was
no
just
pressure.
No pressure. And the music started. People were up. Their hands were raising, and I was like, okay, what is going on here? That stopped, and then the pastor just gave this message. And there was a moment. I have no idea what they talked about, but this moment about God, and if you want to, give your life to Christ, and I did, and that was it. And that was this magic. And then all of a sudden I thought to myself, wait a minute. That I just prayed 2 weeks ago, would you bring somebody my way? Did that just happen? Is that real? I'm married to her today.
I was going to say, spoiler alert, Kelly.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Julia is.
Yeah. 28 years married. Took 6 years to get her to say yes.
Yeah.
So we've been together for a little bit longer.
And it sounds like at this point in life also, you're getting all these pieces in place. And then you start continuing your professional life. And you just moments ago had someone questioning whether or not you finished high school, let alone college. And you start going out and you're interviewing, and you tell someone at one point, I want to be a CFO. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And at that point, there was no reason to believe at any point that you would be a CFO.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what motivated you to think I can do that, and then to really pull it off. We're talking Boeing. We're talking like a
Kelly, I had
big deal.
no doubt at 19 that I could do anything in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I had no doubt. And it was just a matter of just chase it and go drive hard. I was working in the retail business for a long time, and 14 years total, and newly married, working 80, 90 hours in management, and wanted to stay married. So Julia was like, hey, you should think about changing careers. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? And so there was this opportunity for an entry-level position at Boeing, and I applied for it. And they said, here's the caveat. It's good for 12 months because we're moving payroll from Southern California up to here to Washington, and that's it. And it was a 2/3 cut in pay. And I said, let's do it. And so I walked in there. And when I did, the first thing I did is I met with a gentleman named Jim Scher. He was a CFO of one of the businesses. And I said, Jim, need to talk with you. Like, help me understand how to navigate my career. He says, okay, let's go talk. And he says, what's your dream job? I said, I want to be a CFO. He said, what? Like, you know that already? I said, absolutely. And he says, well, good, because most people don't. They're like, I don't know, I want to do this or that. He says, you got to pick something. And then he just drew on this whiteboard this design of all these different experiences that would help a person become a good CFO versus staying in accounting and working your way up. And that just resonated so much for me. So I went and built a grid of all these experiences. And I asked him, I said, how long should I be in this position, each of those roles? He said 2 to 3 years, get 80% and move on. So that's what I did. I followed that playbook. And all of a sudden, I just started moving around in the company. And what I learned is that my greatest learning wasn't just doing the assignment. It was the people I worked with.
Oh.
So many smart people. And then you build a network, and then you get a chance to work hard problems, and then all of a sudden you solve hard problems, and they're like, Jerry, that guy can do it. And that's what happened. And so when my career navigated eventually from Southern California to, and every time I left, by the way, you want to hear a funny story?
Please.
Yeah. Every time I left my role, my boss at the time says, why would you want to go to there? Like, I left accounting to go to engineering. Why would you want to do that? Don't you want to be a CFO one day? I'm like, yeah, because I want to go learn the business. Don't you know the only way you can be a CFO is you stay in accounting and you work vertical? I'm like, interesting. and so I did that, and I went from there to facilities, asset management, to HR, and then all of a sudden I was in Chicago, had this incredible role as finance for HR for the company, working for Rick Stevens. He was the SVP of HR, working for the chairman. And that was the moment that my career changed. Because all of a sudden now I'm working in the C-suite, and I felt like every day was like an MBA. I was put on an executive succession plan, and then my jobs just, they were like, there's a hot spot, go fix it, jump over there, and that's kind of what I did. My first CFO role was in flight services, and I was doing that for about a year, and then I went over to the 787 program as a finance director there, and then that morphed into having responsibility over Charleston, South Carolina, and then moving to South Carolina for a CFO role.
Listening to your story, I mean, it sounds like there were two things I hear. One is you always had good intention, or clear intention and extraordinary mentors, people that just came into your life and were able to inspire you, guide you. And every time you reach the peak, something happens to you that teaches you yet another lesson.
Oh, yeah.
And we can't let you go without asking you about your health battle.
Yes.
Your cancer diagnosis, a very rare type of lymphoma.
Yep.
All accounts very, very healthy.
Yes.
And then you're sidelined with this. Can you tell us about that, Jerey?
Yeah, life was, in 2003, was 100 miles an hour for me. I was working on my MBA at Pepperdine. I was doing a Master's of Divinity at Talbot, Biola College. I was a youth pastor, and I was working full-time at Boeing. And we were just loving it. So I couldn't work and sleep in 3-4 hours a night because I believed I could. And all of a sudden, I was not feeling good. I felt like it was an annual cold. And I had this lump on my neck, and I went to go check it out. And they said, here's some antibiotics. We'll do a chest x-ray, and sent me home. A couple days later, I noticed it was getting bigger. And I felt like I had some chest pain and called, and they said, keep taking your antibiotics. And then went back in again, and then they looked and said, oh, that doesn't look good. Here, take some more antibiotics, and we're going to do some more blood work, and sent me home. And then this pattern of pain and things and lumps over. I started doing a lot of Googling and stuff, and don't do
Dr.
that.
Google.
Oh,
Don't
gosh.
do that. Don't do that. And I'm thinking, this is not good. And so it was a Saturday night, had these night sweats, and I knew, because we had just lost my father-in-law to cancer, I'm like, I think I got cancer. And didn't want to have that conversation with my wife because she wasn't ready for that. But I was trying to prepare myself. So the following Monday, went and saw Dr. Bland. Kept going back to the doc in the box. Saw the next doctor, explained my story. And so he says, let me do a chest x-ray. And I said, you already did one last week. And he says, can I do one? I said, sure. He comes back a few minutes later with a red pen, and he just circles this mass in my chest. He says, that looks like maybe some type of lymphoma. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
So that was kind of the reality of it. Things moved very quickly. He says, we're going to move stat. Got me into an ENT and to do a fine needle biopsy. And then I got a phone call the next day. And they said, you have an appointment with Dr. Cirilla, oncology. I said, whoa. Like, do I have cancer? They're like, oh, someone hasn't called you yet? I said,
my goodness.
Man.
And they said, well, I can't tell you on the phone. You need to see Dr. Cirilla. And I said, okay. And then I got a call from Dr. Bland shortly thereafter. And he called and he said, hey, I got your results. And I said, yeah, I just talked to him. They said cancer. And he goes, yeah, you have what he clarified was acute lymphoblastic leukemia is what he said. And when he said those words, like my brain said, you're going to die. Like it was like translating this word. Like I was just not prepared for it. My knees buckled. I sat down. I was like, took a big breath. I'm like, whoa, what? So the next day, I end up seeing Dr. Cirilla with a caravan of people and family and stuff. And Dr. Cirilla was just great bedside manners. And he just said, hey, we're gonna need to start treatment like right away. And I said, great. Well, I need to tell school and work. Should we start this in a week, 2 weeks? He's like, no, you're leaving my office and we're starting now.
It was very aggressive.
Very aggressive. And so we moved from there into the hospital, went and had surgery the next day, did some biopsies, and started treatments that night. And I'll never forget the look on my wife's face. Now, one of the things I asked the doctor before we started treatment, I said, will this prevent our ability to have children? And he said, yes, this is so toxic. He says, the chance. I said, can I take care of business before that medically? He said, no, because every minute counts. I didn't process that. I'm like, okay. So the first night for the treatment, as the nurse comes in, Julia looks at her, looks at me, and she stands up and she says, no, he's not doing it. He just had surgery. We need a pause. And she says, well, I need to have you talk to the doctor. So she says, fine. She went out. A few minutes later, she came back in, and then I saw that look in her face, and she said, hook him up. And I just knew.
Yeah.
Like, it's on. And that was the first treatment. And they were telling me that, hey, if you urinate, you got to be careful because it's like toxic. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're like putting that in my body. That makes no sense to me. So I asked Dr. Cirilla, who came in the next day, and I said, just give it to me straight. How much time do I have? He says, well, we're going to try all these things. I said, no. If this doesn't work, how much? He says, you have 5 to 7 days.
That's 5 to 7 days.
Days.
Wow.
I said, how big's the mass in my chest? It was the size of a football. Huh. And it grew that way, like in a week, from something small to that. And it was collapsing my esophagus, my lungs, pushing on my heart, and it was spreading. And so that was like all of a sudden, okay. And the journey of that, like you almost didn't have time to process because it happened so fast. And man, there's so incredible stories, such incredible stories. But I'd asked Dr. Cirilla, I said, can you put me in contact with just one person that survived? And he says, I cannot. I said, okay, I understand it's in your office, but go broader. He says, I cannot. I said, well, can you go broader? He says, I cannot. And I thought, oh man, come on. And I just remember just getting into this funk. Somebody gave me a book called It's Not About the Bike, Lance Armstrong. And I was inspired by it because I was athlete, he's a fighter and stuff, and he had testicular cancer. And read this point, and he got to do medically treatment so that he had his first son in the middle of the book. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, that's not fair. And so my wife could just gauge, like, okay, Jerry's in a bad time in this week, and so I'm going to go set him up for a massage, and she does. And I go to this place called Wellness Springs that we would go to, and there's no one in there, just me and the person at the counter, and there's a person sitting in the chair. And I said, hey, I need to make sure your technician isn't sick because my immune system's low. And I explained I have acute lymphoblastic lymphoma T-cell. This lady over the corner of my eye walks up, and she stands up, and she walks over, and she says, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Did you just say you have acute lymphoblastic lymphoma T-cell? I said, yeah. I said, are you an oncologist? She says, no, but that's a very rare cancer. I said, well, how do you know that? And she says, because my husband's a survivor. I said, wow. Really? I said, can I talk to him? And she goes, and then this man walks out. It was her dad, and her dad was a survivor of throat cancer. She said, hey, Dad, this is Jerry and Johnny. They have the same cancer. He's like, that's a rare cancer. And I said, yes. She says, could we pray for you? And I said, oh, yes. Like, I'm a youth pastor. Yeah. Yeah, like, I'm good with that.
This is my jam.
This is my jam. Yeah, let's do this, right? So we start praying. And it was just so good. And as they started to walk away, we exchanged information. Her dad turns around and says, hey, Jerry. He said, I don't know if you guys have kids, but Casey and Johnny were told they would never have kids. And they just gave birth naturally to their baby boy.
Wow.
A few months ago. And I thought, wow. And I thought to myself, like, man, like, what are the odds of that?
Yeah.
So it was a really, there are stories like that in my fight going through cancer. And we had believed that we could have kids. Oh, we believed so hard. And we just decided, we're going to defy all odds. And we went and sought medical treatment and tried infertility. And by golly, she got pregnant with twins. And then we lost them. And we were like, this is awful. And we were like, well, let's try again. And we did, and we lost it. And so we said, that's it. We're done. Maybe it's not in our cards. We won't do that. But fast forward, when we stopped trying, 6 months later, she got pregnant naturally, and he was born on my birthday.
Oh, wow.
What a gift.
What a gift. And so I talk about this in my book, and just the story, which is, like, I felt like God saying, doctors are not the author of life. I am. And I want to give you a story that just puts my fingerprints on this for me. And because the odds of running into Casey and Johnny with the same cancer, and it's so rare in the same place. I mean, he was a CFO. I was in finance. He was a youth minister before. I was at that time. It doesn't add up. I was going through this point in time where I'm just so struggling about this, like, cycle, and like, I'll never have kids. It's not fair for Julia. And yet we have this miracle boy.
Two now.
Two. And my daughter Kaylin, who's just another miracle, because we did the same thing again, and we started to do she was born in Chicago. We moved to Chicago and worked for corporate. And we went to see the infertility, and they're like, this ain't going to happen, by the way, but if you want to spend the money, let's go for it. And we never went through with it, but she ended up getting pregnant. And our daughter was born on March 3rd, which happened to be just such a special day for us, because that was the day her father had passed away. And we just saw these these little threads of things that meant something for us. Yeah.
I have to ask you a very difficult question
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
And I
Please.
You have been through so many hard turns. This is our last question.
Yeah.
For any listeners out there who might be in the middle of, a unseen battle, a private battle, what kind of encouragement, what advice would you offer them?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. The reason why I'm telling my story, and the reason why I wrote my book, because there are people right now, like I was at 19, ready to give up, because I had no hope. And if someone would have just showed me that there was hope that I could grasp onto it would have changed everything for me. And that eventually happened. So what I would just tell anybody who's listening right now, you are loved, you're cared for, and there are so many opportunities to change your story. And the most powerful thing that I learned at 19 was I had the power to change my story. And I just believe that God gives us all the ability to change our story. And it really starts with this thinking. And I often talk about like right turn thinking. Mm-hmm. When life throws us these left turns or hard turns, you often are questioning, gosh, like, why did this happen to me? This is not fair. This is awful. I can't handle this. But if you look hard enough, you might just find there's growth in that. There's an opportunity to become something better than you were, because in spite of those things. And if you could just trust when I tell you that you have the power to take that left turn or that hard turn and make it a right turn, you can. And why do I know that? Because I did it. Mm-hmm. And I've watched people in my life that have had similar victories about just changing the way they think. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And there's just so much truth to that. So that's what I would tell listeners.
Well, Jerry, thank you so much for sharing your story with all of us. It's been such a pleasure to have you here, and for you to travel in. It means a lot too.
I'm so
thank you.
Glad to be here, and thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that conversation with Jerry. And there were lots of different things in there that I thought were interesting. You know, I think in another episode, we also talk about religion, which isn't something that we often talk about because we know it can be polarizing. Mm-hmm. But when it's such an integral part of someone's story, you know, it's worth exploring. And whether you're looking at it from a religious sense or a mindset sense, what I really like that he was talking about was the power of the mind, whatever the motivation is.
Yes.
Whether it's religion or something else. And for him to be able to get to a place of forgiveness by changing his mindset, by feeling like he could control things more by the power of his own mind. Yep. And I wish that, I know me personally, I wish that I could harness just like an ounce of his power of being able to control his mind, because it sounds like it's been such a powerful thing for him, whether you're talking about, you know, getting through his cancer diagnosis or dealing with his past. It sounds like the power of his mindset is something that is a common thread throughout his story of overcoming these several hard turns.
And I don't think we can overstate that, because he talked about, and I don't know if this was before we started recording or not, Kelly, but he talked about how because of the child abuse it had gone on for so long and at such a young age, it basically colored his outlook of the world. Like he literally did not know that there were other possibilities, other scenarios, other outcomes. He thought this was it. And to protect himself, if you read his book, he talks about how he threw himself into martial arts, into Taekwondo, because he always wanted to be able to defend himself and protect himself and do it with physical force, never be pushed around or abused by someone again. But that's like a reactionary response, right? Like, I'm going to learn this the defense skill so I can beat the next guy before he beats me. That's not exactly a mindset change. That's more of I'm going to arm myself to protect myself.
Right.
And the fact that he was able to do that at age 19 and then see there's a whole other next level possibility. My jaw still drops.
There's a lot of leadership lessons in here, too, I think, that are interesting, because he didn't go through education in a formal sense of like, I get straight A's so that I can eventually go to Pepperdine but, you know, he had this different route of going about it. And I think the leadership lesson in there is something that maybe in local news we do sometimes too. When you start out at a smaller station, you do all the jobs.
Yeah.
So you run prompter, you edit, you shoot video, you anchor, you produce. And it's kind of like when he was talking about splitting up into all the different departments. Oh, why would you go and do that when you've got this accounting gig? Why are you going over there and trying something different? But it's so you can harness the skills of the people and understand your workplace comprehensively, which makes you a better leader rather than just having your sympathies with like the accounting people.
Yes.
You understand the sales or the what have you. And I just thought that that was a really great lesson is if you want to move up, try everything, really understand the landscape. And I think that he said it was the people that you work with. Like that's the key to moving up for him to eventually become CFO.
And there's no right order, especially the traditional order. We all think, oh, if I don't do it this way, the way that I see everyone else doing it, then I'm never going to get there. But Jere Stille is living proof that that's not true. You can go about it in a different way and still get there and still be enormously successful. So don't let anyone ever tell you that you got to do it and it's only got to be this way. It's a good reminder.
And I especially think in the world we're living in with technology the way it is, the whole philosophy is like break things that exist to form something new. And so I think that that really plays in. I don't know what the world looks like when our kids go down the line. Like, is the college to master's to whatever the route, or is it more of how you think about things? So I think he's just a great example of that too.
Which goes back to the power of the mind.
Yeah.
Right? I love his story.
Yeah.
So cool.
And Jerry, the fact that you flew all the way here. Oh, my goodness.
We're so appreciative.
We are so appreciative and a great story that I hope really resonates with a lot of people.
That was a great conversation today.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it to us, Mary.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, thanks.
Yes. Connections, right? People in the newsroom and I know someone.
Right.
By the way, if you know anyone also, let us know.
Let us know. So thank you guys all. Oh, you right there.
16.
Hi, camera 16. Hello to the people and goodbye to the people. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.